Hello, welcome back to my channel. This is part 1 of hopefully many covering my ultimate CT project. These videos will be put up regularly, so subscribe to follow along. The goal of this project is to make what you would call a sleeper, which means it looks like a normal CT but with more power. To achieve this, I'm planning to use a 140cc semi-automatic engine with a 3-phase alternator from OO Racing. I also wanted a few quality of life improvements, including addition of a fuel gauge, tachometer and a suitable LED headlight for night riding. I also wanted improvements to fuel economy by utilising an electronically controlled fuel ignition and ignition system. The entire electrical system has also been redesigned, as the alternator can provide up to 100 watts, compared to the 50 watts of a normal alternator. This allows addition of a battery charger to keep the battery alive instead of killing it in a year, and also allowing for electric start. In addition, all lights are going to be LED, and use of a smaller 1 amp hour battery instead of a stock 4 amp hour battery will allow space for all these improvements. In keeping with the stock look, I'll be using a 3-position key ignition instead of going with the regular on-off switch and an E-start button on the handlebars. With all that out of the way, let's move on to what's been completed so far. The frame is a 1972 Honda CT90. It was bought along with a 1977 CT90, which I'm using for parts. The 72 is in the best condition overall, so I'll be utilising its frame for the project. All the parts to be painted orange have been sandblasted and repainted. The weld nut for the battery box was badly damaged from a stuck bolt and had to be cut out and replaced, which was not an easy job. The wheels are from the 1977. They have been taken apart, cleaned and restrung with new spokes. The bearings have been replaced and new brake pads have been installed. I used Michelin M45 city tyres. Design work on the electrical system is nearing completion, with a prototype power distribution board designed and a 12-volt UPS board on hand. The design for the dash PCB is ongoing. The EFI system is still in early stages, but the NO2C Arduino board has been chosen. Unfortunately, documentation on the Arduino is lacking, so I don't see much work being done until I have a board on hand. For the fuel sender, I will use a traditional swing arm float and use an Arduino Nano Every stored in the headlight housing to interpret the sender and control a gauge under the speedometer and tachometer. Speaking of tachometer, I have just finished converting a CL360 tachometer from being driven mechanically from an engine to servo controlled, which will be driven from the same Arduino as the fuel gauge. The speedometer has been sourced from a post-1998 CT110. Unfortunately, the original CT90 speedo was proving difficult to repair, and the 1977 Speeduino is in miles per hour. Fortunately, the tach goes well with the speedo, so I think it worked out in the end. After a surprisingly hard search, a 3-position ignition switch with a weather-resistant flap was found. Luckily, it barely fits under the downcomer plastic. Parts were 3D printed, so it fits securely. New front and rear suspension has been bought, the rear being installed on a CT110 for testing on the road. The front suspension is not the best. Unfortunately, buying stock is very expensive, so I bought a $100 one on eBay. I took them apart for examination, found them to be suitable. They were re-oiled and the fender bolt holes were re-threaded as they were messed up from the factory. Apart from that, they fit nicely and look good. All chrome parts have been cleaned and re-shined with a brass brush. I've started buying big plastic parts, including the airbox, battery box and downcomer. I was going to do it all in a dark grey, but I'm redeciding on a lighter grey. It'll be hard to repaint plastic, so I might end up rebuying the airbox and the battery box cover. I bought a full set of indicators, which are much cheaper and larger than the stock indicators. They are also made of plastic. These are cheap enough that I won't feel bad if I drop the bike and destroy them. I'm working on a way to mount them. The tail light of the 1977 has positions for indicators, but I like to mount them in a flexible tube. That concludes part 1. Thanks for watching.